If you could go back in time and give your 16-year-old self any piece of advice, what would that be? So if I could go back in time and give my 16-year-old self any piece of advice, what would I say? And I've given this a lot of thought. And I'm not talking about, what sports team to bet on or, which stock to pick, because that's not really the point of this exercise. I think I'd have a few things. I think I would definitely say try to start some businesses early and I probably would have avoided the military. I probably would have avoided college just because I'm looking back, in hindsight. If I could have started my tech career at 18, there's no telling where I would be now, right? I would have so right now I have about 10 years in industry. Had I started at 18, we're looking at 24 years in the industry, and that's a lot of money to put in the bank. So if I could go back in time and tell my 16-year-old self what to do, what I'm going to end up doing maybe, is I would say, look, it's probably after 1992. We're probably somewhere in the 90s at this point. I don't remember. I haven't done the math. I'd say learn Linux. Start learning Linux right now. Start learning whatever scripting languages you can get help with. I don't know. You'd probably have to pop onto an IRC back in those days. Probably have to pop onto an IRC. I don't know what. Probably people would have been throwing Perl at me. I know Bash maybe would have been thrown at me, so I can live with that. I would say, hey, stick with Bash. But yeah, start learning Linux. And then start looking into some of this early web design, and start looking into some of these databases that exist in the 90s. Because from there, and I'm talking your 15, 16-year-old kid, you can run some servers in your closet and host some websites for people in your town. Make a little company. It doesn't matter if you're making a ton of money or any money at all. The reason I have my 16-year-old self running a company is because that's going to go on a resume. So what I might do is I might look at a certification or two. I don't know what Linux, it was like a technician certification back then. Maybe pop in a Linux certification or run this business really well. Because the minute I turn 18, I'm going to run to a big company like Rackspace. Rackspace was around at this point in time, 2005. I'm pretty sure they were around, and those were like the glory days of Rackspace. Now, would I had to have convincing a lot of people to let me on? Sure, 18-year-old kid, what are we going to trust you with? But I can't tell you how many people I know who kind of got their start at Rackspace. That's one of the things Rackspace is really known for. That's kind of why I singled this company out in particular. Rackspace is known as a great place to get your start. And that's where people are willing to give you a chance. You may have to come in and do some overnight work or some tech support work, customer facing work, but that's okay because Rackspace you're going to grow so fast. So if I show up to Rackspace and I have all this Linux knowledge and I have all this web design knowledge and hosting knowledge and database knowledge, right? 15, 16-year-old kid, 2 or 3 years to learn this stuff, oh yeah, you're going to blow it out of the park. And you have a little business that you can point these people to. Hey, here's like 4 or 5, here's the martial arts studio in my town that I have their little website hosted for them, and I've done some marketing for them on the side. These managers are going to eat that up. These managers are going to go nuts. It's so funny when people ask you when you're a kid, what do you want to be? You always get that in the U.S. and in the West. You always get that question like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when you're a kid, even when you're in college, I think even when I was like 25, I didn't know what I wanted to be yet. I was exploring every career out there. I've done everything you can think of, from sales to the military to I've done day labor when I was super, super broke. But I would say, I want to be a tech. I want to be in tech somehow, somewhere. I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I want to do. I mean, even if you're like, I want to be a Linux sysadmin, people are like, what? What does that even mean? I think when I was a kid, after I wanted to be a wolf and after I wanted to be a T-Rex, I think what I settled on is I wanted to be an architect. And at the college I ended up going to, the closest thing to being an architect was being a civil engineer, which was a great job. But I never finished college, and when the Army stopped paying, I kind of stopped going. So if I could go back in time, I would say, you get a job at 18. Even if you're in tech support and you're making $10 an hour, you're making money at 18. You're starting to make that money at 18. You're not going to be in tech support forever, especially at a company, like I said, Rackspace or HostGator or some of these companies. And these are all like Texas companies, and they're in the Austin, San Antonio area. So these are kind of the ones I know. You're not going to be a tech support agent forever. You go to work at your ISP, whatever your local ISP, you're not going to be a tech support agent forever. You're going to jump. You're going to move around. These jobs move fast. If you don't want to move fast, they don't have to move fast. If you do want to move fast, they move really fast. Another company, IGT. IGT gets you into Linux. So many people came into the Linux world through IGT. And then you're going to evolve. You never know. If I had started this when I was 18, I can't imagine where I would be today. I probably would be a multi-millionaire. I probably would be, who knows? It's just the sky's the limit. But I would say it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 80. Well, maybe if you're 80, but still, if you're bored and you want to do something, pick up these tech skills. Pick up these skills and go create something. Creating something, creating a website, creating a web app, creating, even if you're into games and just using Unreal Engine to create some games, there's nothing on earth more satisfying than making a web page, and just throwing it out there. And there's really nothing more satisfying than the first time you move around in a game world that you've created. So I would really, really encourage people to think, doesn't matter what age you are, if you're just not happy with something, maybe you don't have a degree and you're like, well, I don't have any earning potential. You don't need a degree in tech. You don't even really need certifications. Certifications help get your foot in the door. You don't need them. If you're an expert, I know plenty of guys making 200 plus K, no certifications, no degree. I have a friend, the first friend of ours that really got that first six-figure break, never set foot in a college classroom. But he had that Linux Red Hat certified engineer. They put the time in, gave him a chance. He was making like 90 grand. He ended up making like 110 at that role, but just through promotions and stuff. And that was IGT that did that. So I would say learn it, because even if you're like, well, the best thing you can do is start a business, that's true, but working in tech gives you that foundation. You're going to have the finances, you're going to have the free time. You can then really, really put in the effort to start a business, even if that business has nothing to do with tech. You're going to be making the same money as doctors and attorneys, but without all the nonsense. Okay? You're going to, like a doctor, you're going to have to work 36-hour shifts and work overnight, and you're going to have blood in your eye and poop all over the place. That doesn't happen to you in tech. You're working at home. Or you're working in a really nice, swanky office if you're not working at home. Nowadays, most of us work from home. Or an attorney. I had a friend who was a defense attorney, and she said that going to that jail was the worst experience ever because people would throw things on her. You can let your imagination run wild there. And all the debt. My sister-in-law was a doctor, and she had just so much debt. She didn't pay it off till she was in her 40s, y'all. With tech, you don't get that. There is no debt. There is no barrier to entry. There's no GPA. I've known guys who didn't graduate high school who are making six figures in their 20s. And the tech gives you the skills you need to invent things. It gives you the mindset you need to be creative. So you can create the websites your business needs. You can create the tools your business needs. Tech is going to give you so many opportunities to meet people. There's so many meetups. There's so many of these startup grind machines, that are out there. Like in Austin, there's a place off 8th Street. I can't remember the name, but it's just people just get together, and it's a whole bunch of like people office sharing and collaborating, and they have meetups and stuff. So tech really gives you what you need to launch. It's like a really great launch pad. So I would have done that before I did anything. If I could go back in time and give my 16-year-old self one quest: learn Linux, learn web hosting, learn some databases, get that first job, and then keep starting businesses. You're gonna fail. I failed in so many businesses, but it doesn't matter. You're gonna have a great career, a ton of income potential, and you just never know what's gonna take off. So I hope this video helps someone out there.